Hey everybody, it's hwsteele, and today is October 13th, 2021, which makes this the second weekly video for the month of October, 2021, of course. And in this video, I wanted to give you a little something to think about. Just a little something to think about. Now, this is Twitter, the daily chart. Let's move to the weekly chart of Twitter, the stock chart of Twitter, of course. And this is the weekly one. And I'm using the weekly one just because it affords us the ability to look at all of the price data for Twitter all at one time. So we see with the Twitter price chart that right back here toward the beginning of its life, right after its IPO, a few weeks after its IPO, we had an all-time high here on Twitter. And then we had lower tops and eventually lower bottoms. And we finally came to this sideways zone here that lasted upwards of 2 years right here before we really started climbing out of that and making new highs. So really what we're going to look at here is the amount of time it took from this all-time high to the final low right here. And I'm not going to be exactly specific because this is just a generalization as of right now. So we're looking at about 190 weeks or so, 189, 88, 89, 190 weeks. And this is from the all-time high of the stock price right there to the final low right here, okay? Now, what I'm about to show you, we can determine that this is the final low before the market starts to climb up higher here. We're not trying to forecast anything at this point. We're just looking at the market's general behavior. We see that there was an all-time high. We see that there was a consolidation zone here, an accumulation zone, and then we started up higher right here. So then we measure, like I just did, from here to this final low right there and see that it's about 190 weeks. And if we measure from this zone right here, another 190 weeks, we find that right around there, not exactly precisely, but right around there, we're at new all-time highs. Now, obviously, the price action after that has been to move down a bit, at least a retracement. We don't know at this point, theoretically, we don't know at this point whether it's going to continue higher or move down further, but we do know that from the time of the all-time high to the final low, doubling that time brings us to approximately right about the amount of time that it takes the market to break into new all-time high territory. If we go to Tesla stock right here, let's scroll back over this way a little bit. In this particular instance, we see Tesla's moving sideways, what looks like sideways at this point. If we scroll over here, it looks, quite volatile, relatively speaking, and then it breaks into new, very high levels right here relative to what was going on right there. But we get a big top here, and then we get a higher top here, and then a higher top here, and then we see that we do not get a higher top here. The market doesn't move quite as high. Basically makes a double top there for all intents and purposes, and then kind of starts lower and then makes a lower top here. It makes the lowest point right here, but at this point we don't really know that. And then it breaks to a lower high here and then makes higher bottoms around here. So we can assume at this point, if we're somewhere around here in time, that this is the bottom, at least the bottom, the lowest point after this all-time high that we have to work with as of right now. If the market were to continue lower, then we would readjust. So we measure from this all-time high right here to this lowest point that we had afterwards, and we find that it's 75 bars or 75 weeks. And then if we double that, move another 75 weeks into the future, we find that we're approximately at the new all-time high. Now, we had a situation here for quite a while, just like we did back here, where our highs were roughly the same area. They were definitely descending. In other words, it was kind of a consolidation, a sideways move there on the grand scale, so to speak. But we see doubling this amount of time from the all-time high right here to this all-time low after the all-time high that we get to the point in time where we're at new all-time highs. And then we stayed here for quite a while. If we measure, like we did the last one, from the all-time high to the final low right here, we see that we're about 117, 118 bars, something like that. So if we double that, go from right about here and go 118 bars into the future, let's scroll like this right here, 118 bars into the future, we are not at the all-time highs, right? Now remember, in Twitter, this worked very well to use the final low, but here with Tesla it didn't work as well. But we have a different formation. We have the lowest point here is not, I mean, it's a stab significantly below this sideways area right there, right? And if we go back to Twitter and we look at the low here, it was just a sideways move. There was no significant ultimate low that was definitely, unquestionably, significantly lower than the rest of it. It was all pretty much that's about the same as that, is about the same as that. And then we finally have a higher high right there that obviously moves up. So this is a slightly different pattern than we have going on than with Tesla right here. We have a significant, definite lowest point to deal with here. And we see that using this lowest point produces the amount of time that it takes to get us to these new all-time high levels. So I wanted to give you just a little something to think about here. A little something to play around with and to think about a little bit. Roll over in your mind and see what you might come up with. So anyway, this is hwsteele, and I will talk to you in next week's video. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful week ahead. So until then,